All right, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to another Matt Maran Motoring live stream here on the Matt Maran Motoring YouTube channel. Hope you're all having a great weekend here. Thanks so much for stopping by. So like all the other usual live streams here on Sunday, we're going to go for about 2 hours or so. I'm going to have to cut it off pretty close to 2 hours, but we'll do, priority answering here for anyone who has a green username there with the members. They always get that priority answering, as well as anyone who does a super chat or a super thanks will get that priority answering. And we'll try and get to all the non-member questions we can as best we can as well. But anyway, thank you all so much for joining. I see we already have B. Mitchell and Kevin and Danny and lots of Danny. We got some more stories here. And Brian and Lancelot Jedi and Raphael and Tony as well. So thanks so much, everyone. So B. Mitchell starting us off here says, I guess I'm the first one up again. I was at Mecum Indy auction this week, so spots there don't count. However, instead of a spot, I had something odd happen on the way there. Driving through scenic central Wisconsin, I had just gone past a Wisconsin Highway Patrol blue Smurf cruiser, and my little blue pony got crapped on by a bald eagle, sprayed the front from left front headlight to roof. The eagle must have thought, hey, I can get two blue Smurfs at the same time. I got the car washed off with no problem once I found a car wash, but I figured that the patrolman got his laugh for the day. Either that or that bald eagle was a Chevy fan. Wow, that's crazy. I've never had any gigantic bird poops like that. That's pretty wild. I didn't even know that. You must have like really good luck. I feel like that's like a very rare thing, isn't it? Good luck if you get pooped on or something like that from a bird. I think, yeah. So I don't know if you play the lottery, but might not be a terrible day to, if it was, whenever it was. I guess you might have missed it if it wasn't today. But that's the kind of thing, very crazy coincidence. But that's funny. Hope you had a good time at the auction, though. I'm still curious, even though they don't count. I'd be curious to hear, what your favorites were there at the auction. And Danny says, Stormy is under 400 miles away from 80,000 miles. My rare spots were some fun ones. First, an 87 Mercury Tracer, a 95 Mercury Mystique, and an 86 Tempo four-door. Some of my friends are making jokes that the recession is among us because the GTR and Camaro are coming back. Very true. And both came out in 2009 and 2010. They have valid reason, but also they joke a lot. So I don't know what to believe from them and what not to. Well, no, I mean, I saw that meme going around that, it's like, it's the same kind of situation. It's funny how some of that stuff repeats itself because we are absolutely going to be going into some kind of recession. I don't know how big or small, but inflation's already up. Everything else is still not improving with, the oil situation and stuff. So that stuff has lasting effects, and the supply chain, as we've learned in the past 6 years here, does take a while to catch up, but that stuff is absolutely going to hit and feel the pinch even more than just high gas prices. So I think, I don't know, it might actually end up being the GTR misses it because I think GTR probably won't come out fast enough. And I hope that, because I think it's like 2029 for GTR. Hopefully we're still not in, a rough financial place in the world in 2029, but anything's possible at this point. So, yeah. And anyway, he also says, nearly 1 month until I graduate high school. That's awesome. He says, my parents are allowing me to drive back and forth to school for the last month and a half. So Stormy lives at my school from 7:30 to 2:35. Yeah, well, that's awesome. You can get your little taste of a regular commute there with that. And hope you're enjoying the drives. And Brian says, I saw a Rapid Blue C8 Corvette and a Camaro. Very nice. And Lancelot says, good evening. His spot this week was a silver third-gen Mitsubishi Eclipse Spider. And Jedi says, good evening. He's seen some walk-around videos on the ES. No test drive reviews yet, though. The design / looks are growing on me more. Yeah, it's I have to I have to see it in person again. I saw it in person, a year ago back, kind of a shock factor. So I need to see it again in person. I still think, the front end isn't terrible, but it still could be better. I think even though, we can all accept it and it's not as bad as like, Subaru Outback Wilderness, which by the way, I have one of those this week. And I feel bad for people that I'm spreading the hideousness. Like I'm driving around and people have to look at this thing as I'm driving by because, oh man, that front end is horrible. It's not quite that bad, but it is yeah, the ES. There's just so many good looking cars still these days that's I don't think it's impossible to make a good looking car. And it's just kind of a shame that seems to be just the way that Lexus is playing it right now. And I mean, they make some other really nice looking stuff, but ES is a little too edgy in my opinion. But Lexus has often done that in the past, and then people end up liking it, and it's not a big deal, down the road. And Danny says, I forgot about my other spot. He saw an 81 Lincoln Continental Mark 6 Signature Series. Nice. It was silver with a vinyl roof with the red velour interior. Driven by a grandma in her 80s. Someone asked about the mileage, and she said it had 26,000 miles, but she said it had rolled over. So 126,000. That's awesome. Yeah, I saw a bunch of spots today. I was out driving a bunch, and it was a beautiful day. So everyone had their cars out. So I saw what I'm pretty sure was a replica Shelby Cobra, but Shelby Cobra driving around. Saw like an early 80s Camaro, like the Batmobile looking ones, but this one was like bright blue with the blue wheels. Z28. It was really a cool, very nicely kept one. I also saw like an early 80s Jeep Cherokee, like the ones that had the stacked square lights. And it had the wood paneling, but it was like pristine. I don't know if it had been restored or if it's just a really well kept one. I mean, I didn't get super close up to it, but like I haven't seen a Cherokee that clean outside of a museum possibly ever. I mean, it was really nice. So that was cool. Saw Ferrari 296 GTB. That was awesome. There's one or two others I think I saw too. What was it? There's something else cool like from the 90s, but I can't think of what it was now. But yeah, those are some of the highlights for me. Some good stuff. Oh, there was what was the other thing? I saw two at the same time. There's a 2003 Thunderbird, and then I'm gonna forget it. Yeah, I don't know what the other one was. There's a 911, and there's one other one. Or no, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, bunch of fun stuff I saw here this weekend. So I'm happy I'm starting to get some more fun spots out in the Pittsburgh area here. And let me see. Danny says just shocked I saw all Ford cars this week. Nice, yeah. And let me see. And Lancewell, thanks so much for gifting 5 memberships. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the generosity, and happy to see a few people. Actually, I guess I think Panzer. I think I might have seen them around before, but some new faces otherwise, and I hope they can join us here if they're around. But thank you so much, Lancewoth. And let me see here. Tony says, hey, everyone, drove home from Massachusetts this morning, and there was a long Corvette crew on Route 91. They had all generations except the C1. My boys and I got many of them to rev their engines as we passed. It was so much fun. That's awesome. Glad you had a good time. That's great. Hopefully there was a C8 Z06 among the pack, because that's hands down the best sounding one of the bunch in my opinion. And maybe as well said, he also saw that GM is getting out of the medium duty truck and van cutaway business. Seems that they were contracting assembly out of Navistar at their former light to medium duty plant that dates to 1966. Sold the plant to a Canadian company that makes armored vehicles. I actually read about that. Yeah, they're getting out of that, and so I think it's just Ford now, right, for the for the big stuff, because I don't think even Ram does anything that heavy anymore. So I mean, I'm sure it's not a huge volume thing, but Ford's got the monopoly there now. And it's good to know, though, they did reiterate in the articles that they're still keeping around the Chevy Express van and the GMC Savannah. Those are still sticking around at the other factory that builds those. It's just certain cutaway versions of that they aren't doing, but they also did say like some of the other cutaway versions, like the cutaway versions of the like for U-Haul and stuff like that. Like they'll transplant that over, I guess, to the other factory, because they are still going to make U-Haul trucks and stuff. So there's still some of that will happen. But I think they said the Savannah and Express platform there is like 30 years old this year or something like that, which is pretty impressive. So yeah, that's crazy. And he said, B. Mitch also said he rather liked two cars at Mecum Indy. Top sale was the Ferrari 250 GT California Spider, Ferris Bueller inspiration, that got 16.5 million. Very nice. That's awesome. And Mr. 705 says, day 3 with the RAV4. This is my 6th new vehicle and 9th in total. And I can honestly say this vehicle has impressed me the most. I'm very happy with the purchase and I'm loving the excellent mileage. That's awesome. Well, I'm so happy that everything went smoothly with the pickup and that you're having a blast with it. That's great to hear. And congrats on the new RAV4. Hope you're enjoying that new car smell and many, many more happy miles to come down the road here. So, yeah, and also efficient ones too at that. So, yeah, I'm sure that's extra nice right now. And the confirmation says, hey, Matt, did you watch the Nürburgring 24-hour race today? Dacia Logan is the little underdog and it finished the race. I don't really watch racing, unfortunately. I'll watch some of the highlights from WRC, rallying, because that's by far the most exciting form of motorsport, in my opinion. So I'll catch, little clips here and there on that when I can. But other than that, I don't watch any racing. I just don't have time. I wouldn't mind watching a little bit more, but there's just so many other things on my to-do list before I would get to that. But I'm hoping someday to maybe get a little more into that. Let me see. B. Mitchell says the very last Cadillac rear-wheel drive convertible, the 1970 DeVille, delivered new to Henry Leyland's great nephew, founder of Cadillac and Lincoln, only had 6,000 miles, top never put down, $125,000 sold. That's crazy. I wonder how they valued top never put down. Did it have some kind of seal or something? Because that's crazy. And also it drives me even that Thunderbird I saw today, the 03 Thunderbird or whatever, even that didn't have the top down. And especially in Pittsburgh, we don't get a lot of beautiful days. I mean, we have plenty of nice weather, but days where it's not oppressively hot and not too cold, that sweet spot for convertibles, isn't super common. And I mean, everyone does their own thing, but I was like, what is this owner doing with this Thunderbird? He was driving with the roof up, and I'm like, this is the day to have a roof down in your convertible. I don't understand, especially when you pay the extra money for a convertible to not put the top down. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And there's some people, they buy a convertible and they have such a narrow window. It's got to be 75 and cloudy, or else they don't put it down or whatever. And it's like me, I'll blast the heat in the winter and drop the top as long as it's not insanely cold. In the summer, I'm out there and it's I'm just gonna blast the AC. If I get sunburned, whatever, I gotta have the roof off if it's not actively raining. And I even took that, if you guys remember too, the extreme with Chevy was crazy enough to send me a C8 Corvette convertible on snow tires. I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. And I even, for the rolling shots in that, it was actively lightly snowing, but it was actively snowing. And I was like, I'm putting the roof down and doing some hilarious rolling shots there. And I had a blast. I put the roof down a bunch, even in the wintertime in that thing that week. So, yeah, that's kind of crazy to drive something like that. I mean, I know there was a collectible, but to actually put 6,000 miles on it and have none of those be with the roof down is crazy. But to each their own. And Danny says, here's the cars my dad's family had during the late 90s. His sister, my aunt, had a 94 to 95 Corsica. He had his 98 Cavalier Coupe. Grandfather, his dad, had a 93 or 94 Bonneville. And grandmother, his mom, had a 94 or 95 Lumina. Nice. All heavily GM family there, it sounds like. And Liam says, hey, Matt, I'm thinking of getting the Lyric for our young family. How's yours been treating you as of late? It's been great. So, if you already saw the video I did back over the wintertime with the quality control problems with ours, that's the only complaints. There hasn't been anything new since then. If you haven't seen that video, 10-second cliff notes. The doors weren't aligned properly, so they were rubbing at the rubber seals. They said it was just the seals were improperly installed. I don't know, but regardless, the doors are rubbing and causing actual wear points in the door jamb paint. So that was one thing we had to get fixed, and it's still not totally fixed, but it's whatever. And then trim pieces just don't. There's a couple of trim pieces that are the one center console area kind of actually popped off slightly. It's still on and it's not flapping around or anything, but it's not perfectly sealed on there. So, little things like that. But other than that, it's phenomenal. I love the Lyric. And I was actually just talking to Beth about this the other day, and even today, that emerald green paint in the sun. We were doing some rolling shots today. We were filming. It just looks so good. That's the camera car, and so I'm chasing it for all those shots. But I mean, and I just did that 650-mile road trip, in it a couple of weeks ago, and it's so comfortable. I think that's what I keep coming back to. Like there's other stuff that, definitely will have better build quality. And I mean, all lyrics aren't the same. I mean, I got a lot of comments on that video. People said, I had a perfect lyric that didn't have any of that stuff. So there's totally, potential to do that, and have a good one. And you could also have a bad one. But I think, the lyric's been around long enough that all the bugs should be worked out of it. So, from a young family standpoint, like I know my mindset is like I want something that's dead reliable. It's not gonna, have any issues, leave me stranded, anything like that. And the lyric's been, flawless for us for about 7,500 miles now so far. But it's partially because the tires are huge. It's on a big wheelbase and it's, a sled. I mean, it's 6,000 pounds or so. It's such a comfy cruiser, and it handles head and shoulders better than the Mach-E on that thing had those little hockey puck, like 225 wide tires. Yeah, it's a night and day difference, especially coming out of something like that. But even anything else, I drive all these press cars and then I hop into the Lyric, and I mean, it's just like a rolling sofa, but it's still like if I'm in a hurry and I need to hustle it, it also can keep up with that. It's not sloppy feeling, but it's just this wonderful balance of the best of all the worlds. The range is great. It did really well in the wintertime. We didn't lose a ton of range like the Mach-E, since it didn't have a heat pump. That, went down quite a bit in the winter. This didn't go down much. I mean, it went down, but not terribly. Yeah, the Lyrics I'm really impressed with the engineering of it. I think, again, the little fit and finish things, maybe build quality could be improved, but the underlying car is so damn good, in my opinion, that like that is that gets rid of all of my minor little complaints. Yeah, I wish the app was more responsive, dumb little things like that. But like the car is so good that like, yeah, and I mean, we'll see what happens, and next year, whenever the lease is up and how everything plays out. But, even though it's got the build quality stuff, I wouldn't be opposed to holding on to that car. Especially because like, 26 got rid of the start button. We have a 25. And I really like having the start button. I don't know, it's a really, really great car. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, I highly recommend the Lyric. I would just say if you're going to shop for a Lyric, I would just like make sure that the car, the actual physical one that you are going to buy or lease or whatever, which I would recommend leasing still and something like that. Make sure that you have one that's well screwed together. Make sure that, you like push on stuff like on the inside. Make sure there aren't a bunch of squeaks or rattles. Again, it might not be perfect. GM stuff never really is, honestly. I mean, I've even had, Corvettes that have iffy build quality, but I mean, just poke around. As long as everything seems pretty solid to you, I think you probably have a good one or a better one than we did. Because I know like even that front center console thing wasn't perfectly aligned even when we took delivery. It was just that everything was lined up and I was like, I'll deal with it later. And I'm not OCD about that stuff. So for me, it's not a deal breaker or anything. But yeah, so that's really the only thing. Also, I don't know if you already have secured a Lyric or not, but I actually just took the Lyric in because 7,500 miles, it needs a tire rotation. That's literally all it needs for the servicing, which is another thing that's great about, any EV. It's like that and cabin air filters every like 20,000 miles. That's all it needs. I think 150,000, you have to finally flush the EV coolant or whatever, for the battery coolant. But like 150,000 miles is the first major service for that car. But I would just say if you are shopping for Lyrics, make sure that your dealer actually has some. Because I was talking to the sales manager that sold us ours last year. And I'm like, so, you guys seeing any more interest in EVs right now because of gas prices? He's like, we're sold out of EVs. I'm like, what? Because again, you ask anyone on the internet, oh, no one wants EVs. So, it's so predictable. But I mean, I saw the sales data, and that's what I would argue in all my, videos is like the sales data shows April was a really good month. May is a really good month. and it's not improving anytime soon with the gas prices. So there's a red hot demand for especially used EVs. But I was surprised that he said on the news side, he's like, we are sold out of Lyrics, we're sold out of optics, we're sold out of everything electric we have for his Cadillac GMC store. They don't have a single EV. And he's like, they're actually at the point again where they're having people pre-order Lyrics before they come in. So they're already like pre-selling stuff coming off the truck. So, I mean, maybe this is, Pittsburgh, this is a suburban area, a blue area that's more open to EVs. So, the random place in the middle of Tennessee maybe isn't going to have sold out Lyrics. But, certain parts of the country, I mean, I can at least say that my dealer, they are sold out of EVs, which I think, is indicative of, how hot they are now becoming once again. Thankfully, the dealer I work with doesn't do markups. So, you can just wait like, people like, Mr. 705 waiting for a RAV4. You can certainly, place an order for one at a good dealer that's not going to price gouge. Now, will you have a ton of leverage to get a discount like you did 3 or 4 months ago, or even 2 months ago? Maybe not. So, but we have to see, because I know, the lease deals just from like GM Financial or whatever shouldn't have changed. So that's kind of on your side, is that it's not really so much up to the dealer. Like they have to honor those national rates typically. So hopefully you can still get one. But because GM is, at least Cadillac is seeing how hot the sales are for them. I would just say if you're going to get one, they'll change the deals next month. And I think if they're seeing sellouts, they're going to pull back on the incentives. They're, because they're not going to need to, because people are lining up for them again. So again, not to rush you. I don't know if you're ready to buy this month, but I'm just inclined to think that you are going to get the best deal this month before everyone adjusts and says, hey, now we're hot stuff with our EVs that everyone wants. Now, you got to pay way more and we're not going to incentivize this, because I think Lyric deals are still pretty solid for the lease. Ours, we had some help again from the dealer and stuff, and it was also, part of, being part of the channel and all that kind of stuff. But, ours was way cheaper than our Mach-E lease. So I would get on it sooner rather than later, because I think dealers are starting to figure out, at least around here, again, depending on where you are, if you're in the middle of nowhere or something, maybe, they'll still be desperate to dump them. But yeah, EVs are, that was very validating, because I hear enough people shout at me on YouTube that, I'm wrong and no one wants EVs all the time. And so hearing my sales manager say that, my jaw almost dropped. It was like, we were sold out. I actually couldn't believe it. I knew they were hot, but I didn't think they were that hot. And I'm like, is it a supply issue? He's like, no. He's like, GM's shipping us as many as they always have. It's just that everyone's running in and buying them as fast as possible. So yeah, make of that as what you will. Maybe they're the only dealer in the country that has that experience, but I think EVs are actually going to have a huge year this year. And the administration handed it to us on a silver platter. As much as they fought against it, this is a bigger boost probably for EVs this year than even getting rid of the tax credit was last year, which also boosted EV sales. So it's really ironic and hilarious that at every turn they try and stop it, and it keeps just growing even faster. Because of their best attempts, which are terrible attempts. But anyway, moving on from that. But yeah, if you have any other questions about Lyric, feel free to send me a message, an email, whatever. I also do the car consulting on my website. If you want to do a one-on-one video call, more than happy to talk as much as you like about that. But let me see here. So getting back to other questions here. Lance West says, I remember the horror story about the changing the alternator in the 94 Lumina Z34. As an 8-hour job. That's crazy. I don't know, for an alternator, you have to like pull the motor to get the alternator in those. That's nuts. I never heard that. And Dave says, I went to look at a 2011 Camaro convertible. Unfortunately, it had an issue with the top not closing properly, so I had to pass on it. The search continues. The prices haven't changed in 10 years. That's crazy. But yeah, I guess it makes sense. They kind of, a lot of these things, especially in that era too, have kind of bottomed out, and they've kind of found where they're going to land and only probably go up from there eventually. So that I hope the search goes well and you find something else that works out here soon, so you can enjoy it here this summer. And Danny says, my grandmother's Lumina was a non Z34, just the regular 94 Lumina sedan. Nice. And Tony says no Z06, but there was a C701. That was my favorite. That's an awesome one too. Yeah, that's a wild ride. And Nico says today the Blue Blur ate a C43 and an S5. All right, well, stay safe out there, and I'm sure they enjoy the exhaust as you blast it away. And Raphael says that would be me. I don't like convertibles or even sunroofs. That's why the Miata doesn't grab me like the 86, and that totally makes sense. And I mean, for someone like yourself, absolutely, that's the way to go is because G86 is definitely, if you don't appreciate the convertible experience. I mean, Miata, is still lighter, so it still is a very enjoyable experience even without the roof off, but like that's what really enhances it. So if that's not something that's going to boost the appeal for you, then G86 is the way I would go to, because you do have more power and a little more practicality, easier to live with, so yeah. And I'm excited. I'll be getting a G86 here for a week and about a month and a half or so. So I'm excited. It's been a couple of years since I've had one, and I'm itching to get back into one. And Lancelot says, I used to have a 91 Lumina with the 3.1 liter V6. It was okay. It treated me well, but I'll be honest, I didn't like it. It was basically forced on me without any input from me. That's unfortunate. Yeah, I know. My dad had that same kind of thing where his dad was very controlling about like what he should have for his cars when he was younger, and he had some real duds as a result of that too. And B Mitchell says another interesting sale was a 96 Jeep Cherokee 4-door 4-liter 5-speed 64,000 miles, nice original, sold for 17 grand. Nice. That's not a terrible price. Honestly, I thought something like that would go even higher. So that seems well bought. And Mr. 705 says, one thing that surprised me about the RAV is how often it switched to EV. I thought it was just for low speeds. It's become a game to see how much I can get it to drive in EV mode. It'll probably make me get a full EV next time around. Yeah, so that was one of the really nice things with this new 5th gen hybrid system in the RAV4. And I actually appreciate that a little bit here this past week too. It's something I probably should have mentioned more, because clearly, yeah, it's something I didn't hit on in the video. But yeah, like there is a little bit more propulsion there than even the last generation RAV4 hybrid. And they did, strengthen those motors. And I think that's part of how they're able to get, the better fuel efficiency gains, is just having more of that engine off behavior there. But yeah, it's kind of surprising just how far you can go before the gas engine needs to kick on. And then, obviously with the plug-in hybrid there, it's those ones, it's so punchy. And I mean, you can do full throttle highway merges in fully electric mode in that plug-in hybrid one. And it's actually fast. I think fully electric 0 to 60 is still like, I think 6.5 seconds or something like that. Like it's not bad. It's pretty impressive. So, let me see. Last one says, I wouldn't mind an EV so I don't have to go to the gas station. Oh, just so I don't have to go to the gas station. Sorry. He said, the older I get, the less I like dealing with crowds and people. Yeah, that's understandable. I think, society is also not great these days. And so I think that, it's something I think a lot of people feel. And that is, one of the perks, especially in the wintertime. I mean, you're up there in Montana, Lancelot. I mean, brutal to fill up in the wintertime whenever it's really, really cold. And yeah, that's definitely one of the nice perks, is not having to ever stand outside in the cold if you don't want to. At least assuming you have a garage, that is. But B Mitchell says, as for convertibles, I'd rather drop all the side windows on the E9 BMW and have the open hardtop experience versus my Corvair with the top down, wind buffeting. Corvairs also leak with the top up. Interesting. Oh, convertibles also leak with the top up. Yeah. I don't know. I just love the open air, like the fully open air experience. To me, like, Targas are nice too, for sure. It's a great experience, but like the actual, like having the whole back be totally open is, I think, one of the things I really love about the convertibles to do that in particular. But yeah, to each their own. I get, some vehicles are better than others with the wind buffeting too. Some cars are really obnoxious with it. And those are the ones where it's like, maybe this isn't quite as fun. That's actually one of the shortcomings with the Miata RF, which is why I think if you actually are going for an RF, I mean, it's really bad with the wind buffeting, that I would say if you want to take your roof off in a Miata, do the soft top. If you're never going to put the roof down, then go for the RF. But that's really like, I don't know. Maybe they fix it in the past few years, but the last time I was in one, and every time I've been in an RF, it's not as fun. It's fine. I still enjoy it, but like the wind buffeting isn't great for sure. Nico says, wrap it up, Matt. My MacBook battery's at 9%. Unfortunately, we have another hour and a half to go, unless everyone walks off in protest. Yeah, but hope you can find a charge cable there. And TW says, have you thought about buying another Legacy Spec B once your kids head off to university? That would be fun. I mean, that's a car, with having a nice back seat, I could, totally have that as a fun, little backup car after the Fiat lease is over. I think there's a lot of other cars that I would rather have, and I'm kind of weird with this. Maybe some of you can relate, but like for me, I had my Spec B, I loved it, but like having another Spec B that's not my Spec B, it just feels weird to me. And people even ask me this about the Bullet. Like if I had money to buy another Bullet again, would I buy it? I would only be interested in buying my Bullet back if that opportunity presented itself and the stars align and everything. But like buying another one, and no, it doesn't make any sense because it's the same car. But to me, it's just, especially since I have so little opportunity to bond with cars because I'm always, in a different car every week. The little bonds that I've formed over the years with the cars that I've owned, like I savor that. And I just so even if someone was like, here's another Bullet for free, I'd be very appreciative of that. But like, I would really only want my Bullet. Because anything else would just be like not the same, even if it is the actual same. It's just not the same to me. So if it'd be a really cool story if I was doing builds or vlogging and things like that, to find my old Spec B, because I need to run another Carfax on it because it's been, I think, 4 or 5 years now since I did a Carfax on it. I need to, because I lost contact. The owner who had it last ended up losing it in a complicated manner. And so she doesn't have it anymore. So I'm like in the dark as far as what the fate of that car is right now. And I want to find out. I need to just reach out to Carfax and try and see if I can collab on that, because I'm not paying I think it's like $130 for like 3 Carfaxes. And if I want to do all the cars I've owned, I'm not dropping that much money because that video would never make that much money. That'd be a money loser for sure. But I want to see where that car is, because that would be really cool content though, if like that car was, just rotting away somewhere, but it was, within the realm of saving, and it could be something I could kind of bring back to life. I don't have the time, to do that. But if, I could find a good shop that could do it for me or something, and I can kind of document it or something like that, could be kind of a cool topic. But buying someone else's, because the problem with all those Spec Bs, there's very few ones that haven't been put through the ringer and been sent to hell and back. And especially like my year, the 06s, they only made 500 of them. So it's really rare. And I don't really love, it's kind of silly again, but like, I don't really love the 07s. I really like the brick red leather. The 07s are technically better because they got the 6-speed from the STI, mine of the 5-speed from the regular, WRX and Legacy GT. But so, people actually probably are more into the 07s than later. But they had the Alcantara, which I'm still not a big Alcantara fan. And like the brick red leather and that Legacy GT was absolutely the way to go for the 06s. So it's just, they're really rare. The few that are out there are usually just completely trashed. I'm sure there's a few out there that are still nice, but they're just so old that they're all going to be kind of rough around the edges, unless I can find some collector one. But again, I would still just want mine, and I'd love to restore it and make it pristine again. But even that car, it seems like it's kind of had a little bit of a harder life since then. I know the steering wheel got swapped for an RD wheel, which is fine, but like I would want to have an airbag, so I'd have to like source a new wheel. There'd be a lot of things I'd have to do. So we'll have to see. But I'm gonna just have to figure out where that car is at first, and if it's still on the road, and then go from there. But now there's a lot of other cars I'd rather have, especially once my daughter's off to university. I think that would be the time where I'd be like, finally, I can have an F type, because that's one of the top ones I've wanted for a long, long time. So that would probably be what I would do. But I got another 13 years until that happens, and then we'll see. See what the world's like at that point as far as car ownership and driving and everything else. But yeah, it's a fun idea, and I am going to do a video about what's going on with that car at some point. I just seem like I got a pretty busy summer here with press cars to film and stuff, but that's one I want to try and work in here at some point soon. And confirmation says, Matt, I like my diesel BMW 328D wagon, but paying $7 a gallon for diesel is getting old quickly. I bet it is. Sorry about that. And also, I see Lanswath. Thanks for stopping by and for the super chat there. And sorry it took me a while to get to the super chat there, Lanswath. But he says sits down in protest. well, thank you for sticking around here, Lanswath. And yeah, appreciate you always hanging out here with us. Let me see. Where were we here? So almost found my spot. So Lanswell also says, I think Matt is still jonesing for a GR Corolla. Indeed, I am. And cheers for anyone drinking at home to the GR Corolla mentions. Yeah, GR Corolla would be great too. I will say though, I've been, looking at, because I'm very much, thinking about crash testing, all that kind of stuff, and especially if it's a car my daughter's going to be in, I want it to be super safe. Corolla's fine, but it's not great. And the new test they've been doing with the rear seat belts isn't great for Corolla. It's not terrible, but it's not great either. So I love GR Corolla, but if I had the opportunity, I'm hoping we'll see what happens, once the Fiat lease is up in 2028. But I'm kind of hoping maybe there would be a new generation GR Corolla that would, have updated safety, but still all the same magic, same engine and all that, but just with a little bit better safety. And maybe, again, we'll see how the finances are, at that point, but maybe that could be something I could line up to do a new gen version of that potentially. We'll have to see, but that's kind of my thinking on GR Corolla now. I wouldn't be upset about having the current gen, and I could certainly live with it because it's so much fun, and my daughter very rarely rides in the back because we're always in the Lyric. She literally only rode in the Fiat for the first time after me having that for a year and a half, like a couple of weeks ago, and it wasn't even me driving. Beth was driving because I took the Lyric on the road trip, and I didn't have a press car that day to have her drive in, so she was just in the Fiat with my daughter, and yeah, she loved that little thing though. So but anyway, confirmation says, should I consider trading in the diesel there for an EV? I'm not really a fan of EVs, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, the main question I ask anyone considering EVs is, can you charge at home or at work? And how much do you drive every day? Those are the two big questions. If you drive, especially if you drive 30 to 40 miles or less every day for your commute and your usual driving, if you have a garage, you can plug it into the wall. You don't need any special charger or anything. You just plug it into the wall. You'll be ready to go every morning, if you plug it in and you have a charge overnight. So, if that's your situation, or if you can charge at work, even better, because then you're not even paying for the electricity. If you can do one of those two, absolutely. Now, if you're an apartment dweller, if you street park at your house or whatever the case is, if there's some of that kind of stuff, then no, stick to a regular hybrid. If you're trying to save some money on gas, and that's it. But I never recommend an EV for anyone that can't charge at home or at work. You can do it. And I've even had a few people, I think, in the live streams in the past that have mentioned, every Sunday night they go to the same grocery store. They have a very rigid schedule. They only do a certain amount of driving every week. So every Sunday night they fast charge while they go in and do their 30 minutes of grocery shopping or whatever. Come out, the car is full, they have a full week. If you have a very predictable schedule like that, especially for just a work vehicle you're commuting in or something, then in that kind of an instance, as long as the charger isn't going to be a complete crap show every time you show up and it's got decent availability, that kind of an instance could work as well. But a little bit more of an unknown there. But that's it. Otherwise, yeah, I think EVs are great. They're great commuters. It might not be super exciting, but if your commute's sitting in traffic most of the time, you're not able to canyon carve on your way to work, you're probably not going to miss that much in an EV aside from, the sound component. Um, yeah, so I think that's really the other thing. But I mean, obviously, yes, it's the cheapest way to get around. I mean, a full 300-mile plus charge in the Lyric costs less than $13. The Fiat, which is really, great for commuting because it's, small battery, but you don't need to road trip in it. That thing is like less than $8, for the fill up there. So yeah, it's very nice. I'm very thankful for for that right now. So yeah, but those are the main questions I ask anyone. So depending on how you answer those would inform, what you should do there. Nico says UVs would be good for drive-bys, nice and quiet. They won't hear you coming. Well, I mean, that's the one thing I loved about the Ioniq 5N. I know you're talking about violent drive-bys. But as far as like, that's what I loved about the Ioniq 5 is you could really have a bunch of fun in that thing, and you didn't alert every police within a 5-mile radius that you were accelerating quickly. And it's and you're also not like, disturbing the peace and everything else too. Again, people enjoy disturbing the peace. I've done plenty of that myself. So, not talking smack on that, but it is kind of nice to not have everyone looking at you. Sometimes some people again enjoy having everyone look at them, but I'm kind of more low profile, low key of how I don't like showboating very much. So for me, like a fast EV kind of, scratches that itch for me. And even in the Hyundais, you have the sound. So I've got sound, I got shifting, I have all the G's, a lot of G's, and no one knows, really. And that's the way I personally like it. But yeah, I know. Yeah, there's lots of lots of good use cases for EVs. That's for sure. And let me see. Lasso says the alternator on the 94 Lumina Z34 is on the back of the engine by the firewall. Crazy. That does sound terrible. And Raphael says, I love the Miata as a hardtop, but in that case, the GR86 becomes more practical. Love them both, though. Yeah, totally agree. Let me see. Lancel says, yeah, especially when your truck has a 34-gallon tank. Oof. Yeah, that's gotta be, man. Yeah, I know you probably enjoy your truck, and I know it's probably got some sentimental value to you too, Lancelot. But yeah, it's just everyone's different, as far as where the breaking point is, as far as what's worth it and what isn't. It's just so hard because none of us know how long this is going to last with these high gas prices. I think a lot of people thought it'd be over by now already, and we were told it was going to be quick, and here we are, and it seems like we're kind of in a stalemate. But it's not a stalemate we can afford to be in, because I mean it is for anybody. I mean, it's just we're pretty well insulated here in America, but like I don't know how many of you guys have been keeping up with the crap going on in the rest of the world, but I mean the gas lines, the shortages, the complete chaos, and also huge uptick in sales too. Like what was the one I was listening to a podcast? I can't remember which country it was. There's some country in like South America that like last month, maybe, I don't know. It's not like a tiny country, but it's obviously not a huge place. But like their sales, I want to say it was like Paraguay, or it was something bigger than that, though. I don't know. Anyway, their sales were like 75% EVs. And the point they were making the podcast was like, we were always told that, EVs were going to be popular in the rich countries first. And, that the people that are in, these poorer countries are going to be, burning gas for the next 100 years. But they're like, no, like these other countries are showing like everyone's throwing solar up on their patios. They're, doing these little things. And then they're having massive EV uptake, and they're like 75% EV sales in some of these places that you wouldn't think. But a lot of the perk of that is that these places are being able to buy Chinese EVs, so they're buying these really nice cheap EVs, and so they're getting affordable mobility, and they're they're avoiding some of this gas stuff that's going on. I mean, like Vietnam is really getting hit hard. A bunch of those kind of places are not doing well too, because they import so much gas in Asia as well. But anyway, it's just kind of crazy. Even if we can carry on with gas at sky high prices, like the rest of the world's going to get restless sooner or later, because they're not going to have very much more patience for this spat that we brought upon ourselves. And, but it's just like, we're going to get more blowback from other countries eventually, because it's not a good place to be putting the rest of the world in just because of, something that we decided to go out and do. But anyway, I won't get too political here. Moving on. So Nico says, what do you Americans know about the cold? Ever been to Canada? Very valid point. You're right. Yeah, it's not too bad here compared to what you Canadians put up with, for sure. And Juan, thank you so much for a super chat. He says, in 2006, I beat my coworker in my IS 350. He had an 06 STI. We raced leaving work and he was upset. I was even surprised. The STI should have been quicker, but maybe he sucked at shifting gears. Yeah, that must be the explanation, because otherwise I don't understand how else you would have beaten him. Unless he had bad gas, or like, didn't put 93 or 91 in it or something. I don't know. Or he had some kind of misfire. There's either something wrong with his car, there was something wrong with his driving, or you had a special IS 350. It's one of those three. But thanks for sharing the story. That's crazy. Yeah, that's because I mean, it's not like the IS 350 was slow, as I'm sure you're well aware, but like, yeah, was definitely not as fast as an STI, I don't think. Also, I know with a lot of that stuff back then too, a lot of people did tunes and stuff that weren't the best, because it was still kind of early years, especially for American tuners. With the STIs and the WRXs. So like, there's a chance that maybe he had a tune that just wasn't actually performing super well, something like that too. It's possible. I don't know. And thank you again for the super chat there and the fun story. Let me see. Darnell says maybe a 2029 bullet. Possibly, but to me, S550 was peak. I mean, it would be cool if they did the same formula for S650, but yeah, just to me, S550 was really, really great. I mean, styling wise, honestly, I think the 08 is going to always be the ultimate. But I think, the 19 just kind of had that sweet spot blend of still very 60s, especially in the back, but had all the, more modern stuff with the active exhaust and all that I loved. But yeah, I mean, I'll be curious if they do that. I really don't think they will do the 2029 bullet. I just think that they've kind of aged out of that as far as the people that appreciate, the heritage of the bullet versions. And also, Ford's just, they're not even doing Shelby anymore because they don't want to pay any licensing there. Like, they definitely don't want to pay Warner Brothers for the bullet licensing. I guarantee you that. And they're interested in moving on to the, Dark Horse, RTR, all these other things, younger stuff instead. And if they're going to do a nostalgia play, it's going to be, a Fox body thing. I still can't believe we haven't seen an SVO, something like that. I think, before we see, but even that, prime opportunity. Instead, they're doing RTR, EcoBoost Mustang or whatever instead. So yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, but if it does, it'd be cool. I wouldn't run out and buy because I couldn't afford it, especially at that point. I mean, because it'd be Dark Horse based, or even if it's Performance Pack Level 1 these days. What is that, 65 grand? I looked actually at my window sticker the other day for the book because I still have the, PDF of it. 50,000 and change for that car in 2019 or 2018. It's like, man, inflation was not kind to car prices, and it's going to happen again here most likely if inflation keeps up here. But anyway, so Lancewell says not wanting a different bullet makes perfect sense to me, Matt. I'm glad at least one person understands my crazy there. Thank you, Lancewell. And also, Chad, thank you so much for gifting a membership. I really appreciate that. Happy to see that Tuned by Jay was able to get that. I think I've seen him pop up before. I'm not sure if it's just in the videos or in the lives here, but thanks so much for the generosity, Chad. And let me see here. Where are we here? So Goth Rocker says you should have kept that Spec B. I had an 06 Subaru Legacy GT, very similar car as your Spec B. Mine was in the same silver, but was a GT. They were fun, peppy, and handled great. I agree. There's so many ways, hindsight obviously being 2020. I mean, that car was paid off. I didn't have to sell it. I could have just kept it and, had that and the BRZ. It's just that at that point, I was still living with my parents, and having that thing just be street parked mean, it's not that big of a deal, but like it never got driven because I was just so into the BRZ. Unless it was a really snowy day, I'd take out the Spec B, or if I needed to haul a bunch of people, I took out the Spec B. So there were use cases for it, but it's just I felt that car deserved to be enjoyed by someone else. But looking back on it, me keeping it pristine is probably the way. If I could do it all over again, that's probably, what I would have done is just held on to it. But also, if I'm playing the hindsight game, if I knew what I knew today back then, I would have sold that Spec B, taken the cash. I think I sold it for like 14 or 15 grand. I would have taken that cash and I would have immediately put it all into Bitcoin and then been a multi-millionaire and then bought the Spec B back, at any point in the future and done a carte blanche restoration on it or whatever. If we could go back in time, like that was the obvious move there. Or, invest in, Tesla stock or any of these other, things that have just shot up, Nvidia stock, take your pick, anybody that does that, which is fun. I know in the past we've mentioned, like UFOs and stuff and that kind of thing. And I have my hunches about some of these mysterious people that made gigantic sums of money off of Bitcoin and the others and then vanished. Like the biggest shareholder of Litecoin, I think, cashed out in like 2008 at like almost the perfect peak time. And then I don't know who it is, but like part of me thinks I like to think that time travel is possible, and people like that kind of raise red flags for me. It's like, well, why did you time this perfectly? It could just be fraud. But I like to think it's something a little more whimsical, like time travel or something like that. But anyway, let me see. Raphael, also thank you so much for a super chat. He says, I totally agree. My bond isn't with the TRDs, it's with my my NYX. Getting another wouldn't be the same. Or sorry, I guess that's the name of it. I'm not going to attempt to butcher my pronunciation of that. Nix, maybe. But yeah, well, I'm glad that you're also in the same boat there. And yeah, it's never the same. I think that's also why a lot of people too, even if like a car gets totaled or wrecked, a lot of people don't go out and buy the same exact thing just because I think a lot of times it wouldn't be the same. A lot of people still do, but yeah, for me, it's like you have that bond, and if you have something that looks like it, but it's not actually it just kind of feels weird. I don't know. And thank you so much for the super chat there too. Let me see. So confirmation says, I can't wait for you to buy an 07 Jetta GLI Fahrenheit for your daughter in 2037. No, I don't think that would be it. Lots of cars I pick for her. I mean, GLIs are fun. But no, there's a lot of cool stuff, and we'll see again what she's into, or what the world is like by that point in time. Because I think there's a pretty good chance that it's going to be a lot less regular driving by that point. There's going to be pretty extensive Waymo and whoever else survives kind of presence at that point, especially in suburbs like where we are, in cities, probably not so much in the rural areas, but suburbs will be mostly Waymos, I would assume, by 2037. There'll be some people that it just doesn't work for them, young families that need a cart, kids around, stuff like that. But for the vast majority of drivers that are solo driving on their own, or even with a passenger that's an adult, where you don't need to install car seats and stuff, I think it's going to be, probably mostly just ride hailing. It's going to be happening at that point, but we'll see how it plays out. There's a lot of I could go on a tangent of that because I was listening to more interesting podcasts, and I think it's kind of informed a little bit of, because I think some of the question marks I had about autonomous cars were I've kind of pieced it together now of like my opinion on how I think that's all going to go. And maybe that's a topic for a video at some point if people care to hear my 2 cents on that. But I think it's going to really change the car industry, because again, you're going to have the family cars. It'll be most of the car market, I think, because it's really going to be the large majority of people who still buy their cars. There'll still be some people who just buy a self-driving car and they like the personal thing of having their own vehicle and that attachment, that bond, and that's there will still be some of that, but even those I think will be mostly self-driving by that point. So you'd see the Waymos, privately owned self-drivers, or the few enthusiasts that are driving themselves, and the families that probably also going to be self-driving, but it'll be again their own cars. So it's not like the car market's going to go away, but I think it's going to be a lot less. And I think car companies are not prepared for the much lower volumes. And I think this is why it's very smart the way Jag is pivoting. I don't know if they're doing this intentionally and they have this in the back of their head or not, but I think Jag saying we're going to sell lower volumes and we're going to sell only to high rich people that are going to want to have that statement piece. Like, people again are throwing eggs and tomatoes at Jag left and right, but I think that that's a brilliant move if they can actually keep it sustainable here for the next few years. I think they're actually extremely well set up alongside every other high end brand into the mid to late 2030s. That's going to be money. I think that's going to be the only way to really survive for a lot of those brands, because volumes are just going to go to a quarter of what they were, I think, But anyway, let me see here. So TW says, if you could collaborate with one person for a car video, who would it be? James May. That would be my pick. I just, the Top Gear guys are the ones who inspired me to do, car reviews in general, at least on video. And James May just seems like a really cool guy. I enjoy watching some of the Drive Tribe stuff whenever I have time, and his Planet Gin and all those kinds of things. So that would be really, really fun to work with him. Be happy to work with Richard Hammond as well, or Clarkson, any of those three, but those would definitely be my top picks. There's a lot of other really cool people that I could, pick as well, that I would be absolutely floored to have in a video with me. But I'd say that's probably be some of the top ones, and I'm always very jealous of the people who are getting to work with some of those guys, Jason Fensky from Engineering Explained, doing some of the Drive Tribe collab stuff with them, and it's like mind blowing. I'm also very honored, like I know someone who actually knows James May now. But yeah, no, it's that would probably be the pick. There's a lot though. I mean, I can rattle off if I sat down and thought about it. But I think that's probably the pick. And let me see. So Philip says, this summer I finally get to take my launcher N down to the tail of the Dragon. Gonna be fun. That's awesome. Well, I hope you have a great time. As someone who just drove it for the first time ever back in the fall in the Charger Scat Pack, it's really a fun road, and especially being on a launcher N, you're gonna have even more fun than I did in the big Charger. It's really cool. I'd say if you've never been there before, for me, I didn't quite know when it was actually starting, because you see all the fanfare, there's the restaurants and there's shops and all that kind of stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, it's gonna be starting right after I pass this shop, and it's like, no, it's a little ways off. So if you're I'll just say if you're going the first mile or two and you're like, oh, this doesn't seem anything special, just wait, have patience. You get to the really good stuff eventually, and then it's really, really cool. Yeah, highly recommend Tail of the Dragon. I'm very glad I was able to check that off my bucket list here. Yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts once you're able to enjoy that here in this summer. And DW says, so due to the engine oil shortage, Toyota has decided to change from 0W8 to 0W16. Thoughts? I had no clue they'd even made 0W8 weight oil. Yeah, they've been using that for a while now on the hybrids. And yeah, that's another thing that no one's really talking about, at least not widespread, but that's a big issue. Plastics are a big issue because a lot of these plastics are obviously petroleum based, a lot of that stuff. And then there's another material too that comes from Qatar almost exclusively and can't get it anymore. And I can't remember what it was, but there's even some of the stuff they use for chip making and stuff. There's so many different things, but oil, actual motor oil, is another thing. There's companies that are already struggling with getting enough supply of that. And it's like, okay, like another thing to worry about is, are we going to have enough oil for oil changes? It's, we, again, there's plenty of stockpiles and it's going to be a while. It's not something you have to go and run out and, panic buy like toilet paper tomorrow. But like, yeah, I mean, oil is another thing that, I'd say it wouldn't be a bad idea to, buy a few oil changes worth to ride this out potentially. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But they're going to start probably having to adapt and tell people, hey, you can put different oils in if you're not able to find the oil that you need. I think there's going to be a lot of that, and there's going to have to be manufacturer concessions to go along with that, as far as like, even if they can factory fill the right thing, they're going to have to be lenient with people on warranty and be like, you can't, ding someone if you find, 10W30 in this car or something. If that's all that they had and you have to keep it running, like if the motor, blows, prematurely or something, like, well, what are you going to do? I mean, so yeah, not great. And I mean, obviously, EVs need, again, that a little bit of oil every once in a while for various little, mechanical bits inside. But I mean, it's mostly oil free, and that's another, I think, big perk for a lot of, especially these developing countries and others, to not be dependent on any of that stuff. It's really nice. Let me see. F80 says, hey, Matt, my wife and I were just discussing this. When did your daughter switch to forward facing? And did that free up any room for the seat ahead to move back further? Yes. Yeah. And that's so I will say, every kid's different as far as their sizing and kind of when it's appropriate. I don't think I mean, legally, every state is different. I think PA, once you are 2, you're able to be forward facing, if I remember correctly. And, but like a lot of 2-year-olds are really small and I wouldn't recommend it. But my daughter is very high percentile for height and weight. So she's a big kid, and so as a result, right at her 2-year birthday, pretty much, or shortly thereafter, is when we turned her around to forward facing, and that does open up a lot of space. Especially, it also comes out of what car seat you bought. Some of them are real bulky, and like ours was, and so it's a bigger gain than some others, or maybe it's more low profile, and you probably don't maybe gain as much. But for us, massive convertible seat she was in at that point, spinning it around definitely gives you a lot more legroom for everybody. So definitely one of the nice perks of spinning them around, but I would just make sure that you do it, whenever it's right for them, and, consult the owner's manual for the car seat you have. I will also add that it's very much safer for them to be rear facing as long as possible. So I was a little hesitant to do it as soon as we did, honestly, but my daughter just so desperately wanted to see what was going on. And like, I mean, she's my kid, so she really wanted to, see the driving, see where we were going, and be involved. And and again, because she was such a, larger kid, she was able to, I think it was a little safer than, again, some of these really tiny little 2-year-olds where I think it's more of a concern. So that's part of why I felt, comfortable with that. So again, different for everyone, but that's when we personally, that was, I think, right around that point. Might have been a little later because I did try and put it off, so I might be misremembering. I think it was before 3 though. So yeah, I don't have a clear recollection. I can go back and look. And yeah, she was born in 2021. So if you go back and look at my reviews from like 2023, 2024, you'll see eventually when it goes from a rear facing to a forward facing. But yeah, it was sometime around there. And yeah, but it's certainly nice to have the extra legroom. Yeah. Aniko says, I saw a news segment of Bostonians freaking out because they got 1 foot of snow. Yeah, well, yeah, 1 foot still can cause some issues, that's for sure. But yeah, we actually had a decent amount a couple of times here this year. It was kind of fun. Let me see. Chad says, I can confirm that we do not know how or have the equipment to drive in snow in Florida. That's certainly true. Also, thank you so much for very kindly gifting a membership here, Confirmation. Really appreciate that. And thanks so much also being a member for over 6 months now as well yourself. So thank you. And let me see. So I'm gonna drink here while I find my spot again. So Lancelot says, I'll be honest, I loathe driving in the snow. People around here in the all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicles still drive the speed limit and ride people's bumpers. That's crazy. Like, the speed is, I mean, also ill-advised, but like to be on people's bumpers, like there is, I mean, there's no justification for that because just you don't have the stopping distance. I don't care how, even if you're on studded snow tires, like you need some room there, so that's crazy. Confirmation says Boston freaks out in general. That city is inhospitable for driving regardless of conditions. Interesting. Yeah, Boston's one of the cities I really would love to spend more time in. I know it sounds like you're painting a not ideal picture of it there, but I'd like to because I've been so many places in the country thanks to my job here, but like no one ever does anything in Boston. Maybe there's a good reason for that. I don't know, but like I would love to do something in the New England area. I've done, like New Hampshire and, kind of gotten a little bit close, but aside from connecting in Boston one time on our way to Paris, I don't think I've ever actually been in Boston, which is kind of crazy because I've been, again, most other major cities at this point. And Nico says snow is whenever snow falls, American says call the National Guard. In some places, there's other places out there. Americans can handle snow in certain areas, I think, better than others for sure. But yes, Canadians certainly have us beat there. No debate there. And Tumbling Monster, thanks for stopping by. He says, I saw a Silverado EV, Avalanche. Yeah, that's what I think they should have done too with those. But he says, saw one for the first time. I honestly forgot those existed. I see Lightning, Cybertrucks, and Rivian R1Ts all the time. Interesting. Yeah, Silverado EV, I actually see a decent amount around here. Not a ton, but I'd say I see like three to four a week in my, little bit of driving I do. I actually saw a Sierra EV towing like a week ago, which was kind of surprising because I honestly don't expect very many people to tow in those things. And someone was actually towing with it. So, but yeah. So maybe those are starting to pop up elsewhere too. I didn't realize they were so rare everywhere else, but yeah, they had really good lease deals. That was another one that was like, I mean, you could lease one. At one point, I think they were down to like $350 a month or something for, a giant double stack battery, 400 miles of range. I mean, it's pretty impressive. I mean, they're obviously losing a ton of money at those prices, but it was a good buy, I'd say, those kind of price points. But anyway, Confirmation says Boston is not representative of the U.S. at all in that respect. Yeah. And Leslie also says, well, Boston did dump a bunch of tea in the bay once. Yep. And then Nico's asking, is that a Pirates tee? It is indeed. Yeah. Pittsburgh Pirates there. I'm showing my Pirate support here this year. I don't actually follow them because I don't have the time, but I still support them even though their ownership is horrendous. But yeah, I got to support them. And Chad says, I have to get brakes soon. I looked online at a few places and none post prices. I was trying to save money, but I'll just go to my regular trusted shop, even though they're not always the cheapest. Yeah, well, the thing with that is, yeah, if you have a good shop you trust, even if you're maybe paying a little bit more, it's worth it because it's going to be done right. They're not going to screw you. They're not going to, try and pull other BS on you. You might actually save money in the end because you go into some other place and they try and upsell you or something. That's that could get more pricey anyway. So I'm a firm believer in, especially, obviously you got to do what you have to do for your financial situation. But if you have the few bucks to spare, support your small shops. And I think you'll actually have a better experience at those places anyway. If you're fortunate enough to have a good, trusting relationship with someone like that, that's great. Nico says, oh man, how do you go from the Bullet to an EV fan? Oh, I mean, I love all cars. I think that's the bottom line. I can have fun and in everything. And that's always kind of been the way I've been. I've had so many fun times and so many cars after 1,000 reviews almost at this point that I've done. I think that's kind of one of the nice perks of doing this job is I got to experience so many different varieties and flavors of car fun. that it's, yeah. And this is another version of that. And so I think it's, obviously there's some that are more exciting than others, but again, I dare any car enthusiast get into an Ioniq 5N, have a rip in it in manual mode with all the sounds on, and tell me you didn't have fun. Like, it might not be as much fun as whatever, snarling beast you have at home, but it's going to be fun. I guarantee you. And this is why, I mean, even just Volkswagen just revealed overseas the Polo GTI, and they're saying it's going to have a manual mode that's going to have like the same kind of shifting and sound kind of thing as Ioniq 5N. We know that Porsche's GT division is benchmarking Ioniq 5N. Everyone understands that car is brilliant, and that is the way to do enthusiast EVs going forward. And I think with that mindset, it's going to be okay. And, because again, if that car is fun and everyone else is copying their homework, all the other stuff is going to hopefully be just as much fun by extension. So I'm optimistic about it, but I think, you got to try it. You got to try it. It's easy to, knock something until you try it. Try it first. If you still hate it, fair enough. Everyone likes something different. And I've always given space for that, but I think that, yeah, you got to try that car, and then it'll make you a believer in at least those EVs. Again, not everything, but it's possible is the bottom line, I guess I'm trying to make here. And FA, thank you so much for a super chat as well. He says, be safe out there, Matt. And here's to ending this optional war so trade along with crude oil can normalize. I totally agree. And I will certainly stay safe out there. Hope you do as well. And thanks so much for stopping by, F80. And let me see. Where are we here? Mr. 705 says, one thing I need to do is tint the windows on the RAV. The dealer wanted $499 for 2 windows. When I said how ridiculous the price was, they said just add it to the finance price. I'm getting it. Yeah, I mean, bundling it into financing certainly helps. And that's kind of the huge home field advantage that dealers have when it comes to any of those accessories is, you bundle that stuff in. And that's why a lot of these car companies are seeing a gigantic opportunity with, especially upfitter accessories for the off-road stuff, and even sports cars and stuff, being able to sell you an exhaust right there, being able to do lowering springs there, whatever, that's huge if you can bundle it into the pricing. I think that's the only reason why there's any business case whatsoever for like the GM AEV stuff, where they have like the, metal, the steel bumpers and the winches and all that stuff, is that you can bundle it into financing. Because otherwise, like, it's so heinously overpriced compared to what you can do on your own. And it's so much more expensive to have it that way. But like, if you're going to do all that stuff anyway, it's done for you. It's done by, a factory level kind of quality, install. And, the bundling it in certainly is, I think, the only thing that makes sense. Otherwise, you're going to be better off just going aftermarket. And same goes for window tint. You can certainly get a cheaper price for 2 windows. Yeah, I mean, even with inflation, there's no way maybe your area is super high demand or something, but I can't imagine that that's a fair price. But, if it's, something you'd rather bundle in, that's the big incentive for sure. But confirmation says, I got pulled over for speeding in Kelowna on the way to Big White for driving faster than the natives. I don't consider that to be cold. I think cold like Yukon or Northwest Territories. Interesting. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know, where those parts of Canada are. I'd love to explore Canada more. I've only been to Toronto and Montreal, which are splendid as well. But I would love to spend so much more time up there. And probably won't have much luck being able to do that anytime soon, unfortunately. And Nico's saying probably Cuba or Argentina as far as the smaller country that was going EV. It might have been Argentina. It wasn't Cuba. Cuba's in a bad way right now because we're cutting off their oil, again, I won't get political, but we're the one that's causing them to have no resources whatsoever basically right now. But no, so I mean, they're like, cooking meat and open fires and stuff like that. I mean, they're not buying any cars, and they can't even, I think they're still sealed off or whatever, that's why they have all the like 1950 stuff, and it's like going back in time there, because they weren't able to get new cars at all. I think there's maybe a few exceptions. I'm not super up to date on the state of all those rules in Cuba, but like no, it's definitely not Cuba that's going EV. But I don't know if it's Argentina. Maybe it is. I don't know. I have to see if I can remember later. But Theodore, thanks for stopping by. I hope you and your family are doing well. I appreciate that. Hope you and your family are doing well too. And let's us talking to Chad here about brakes. And TW says he just had the badges. Sorry, I'm referencing where we were earlier here. Sorry, I missed. Sorry, I'm just too far behind, so I'm not sure what you're referencing there. I apologize. But Chad says the guy at work has a 5.7 liter Charger. I asked him his MPG, and he said he averages 12. I said, dude, you must be running that thing crazy, because that's insane. Yeah, for 5.7, that does sound kind of low. Even the old ones shouldn't be that bad unless he's doing like exclusively city stop and go driving. Yeah, because there's something else wrong there if that's the case. Nico says maybe you had over 100 grand under your hood. Name that movie. Yeah, Fast and Furious for sure. Johnny Tran. And Lancelot says my truck averages 12 to 15. At that, I may as well have a Raptor R. That is correct. Yes, I think in the Raptor R that I had for a week, what was my MPG? I don't know if I even remember. It was low. I don't know if it was the lowest. I think the lowest I've ever done was the Ram TRX. I think I got 11 MPG in that during my week, something like that. So I think that's the winner. I don't think anything's beaten that. I think Raptor R, I think I might have ended up at like 13 and a half if my memory serves me correctly here. It's something around there. But yeah, it's not good. So if that's actually what you're getting, Lancelot, I mean, yeah, I don't know how much you love that truck, but and you know what your financial situation is, but I mean, yeah, I would be looking elsewhere if I were in your shoes. That's for sure. I can't afford to be spending that, but maybe it's something that's worth it to you, and that's totally fine if it is. But yeah, if you can afford a Raptor R, that's definitely the way to be getting 12 to 15 MPG instead. And Theodore says, I have a friend who works at Ford Motor Company. He claims there is a lightweight version of the Mustang GTD. Is this true, or is he just telling a falsehood? I mean, that sounds very in the realm of possibilities. I mean, they've done a lot of lightweighting already with GTD. I don't know anything personally, and Ford is very spotty with when they work with me and when they choose to even give me stuff ahead of embargo and things like that. It's usually I'm out of the loop on that stuff. But I have no trouble believing a car like that exists and is probably coming, because I mean it's an easy cash grab too. I mean, I don't know how much is fully carbon fiber on the GTD, but whatever isn't fully carbon fiber, make that carbon fiber. And it's the same playbook as Ford GT. They had the full carbon version eventually. So I'd say, there's an easy path there. They could totally do the same exact thing. And there's always improvements to be made. There's always, little things you can do to improve things even more. So I'm sure they'll continue to refine that car, especially as long as they have a healthy order book. If they got people lining up for those, making a new iteration is a no-brainer, because it's a money printer, and why wouldn't you? Especially once you've done all the R&D and you've done all the engineering to make that car as great as it seems like it is. It's all just profit after that. So, just keep on raking it in as much as people are willing to open their wallets. And let me see. Chad says, I saw a Fiat like yours, but they had it painted or wrapped like one of those little kids' cars with the pedals. Oh, that's fun. I saw something like that floating around on the internet. Yeah, like the cozy coupes is what they're called. Yeah, which is probably part of why my daughter likes ours so much. And it's so funny because, Beth took her to school in it on that one day when I had the lyric for the road trip. And like all the kids at school like loved the Fiat. Like everyone was like, excited about it. And all the moms were confused because they had never seen it, before. Like, why is Beth showing up in this like clown car? But yeah, the kids like love that thing. It is because it's a happy looking car with the round headlights, and it's bright red, and it's small, and cute and all that. So like, yeah, it's a great car for kids, and also just for cheering up your surroundings. I think it's just we need more cheery cars. Everything is so intimidating, and all that. But I like that the Fiat happily pushes back against that in this drab world of angry cars that we're in. And Chad says, or sorry, Sark says, time travel would be insane to go back in the past and see our favorite cars new, let alone being able to see loved ones who have already passed. Yeah, there's so many cool things, and yeah, I could go on a whole live stream about just my thoughts on all that stuff, because I've done a little bit of research and conspiracy theory research and all those things. But I think that there's a potential, and there's some things that don't make sense about it. There's other things that I think do, and just the idea of reality, and parallel universes, and time, and all that we could get into. But like it's I still think there is some little component of that. I don't know. There are the paradoxes that come up if you were to actually be able to do that kind of stuff. That are often cited as like the reason why that's not a thing. But I think technologically it absolutely could be a thing. But it's I just I don't know how that all would work out. But it's fun to think about. At least in my opinion. Back to the Future is just what got me hooked on time travel, and that's obviously a very idealized movie version of that. But I don't know. I think there's a chance that something like that actually is out there. And that's what says, here I am just wanting Hot Rod from Transformers G1. I've never seen any of the Transformers movies, which I can probably hear the gasps from across the internet here. But I need to sit down and watch those someday, because I just never I guess I just wasn't into them whenever they came out. I'm not sure why. I wasn't a big Michael Bay fan, honestly, back in the day, but I don't know. I should have gotten around to him at some point. I just never did. And Lancelot, thank you so much for the super chat. He says, the Philadelphia experiment. I'm not sure what you're referring to there. I know there's like the Manhattan Project and stuff, and there's other things too that it kind of coincides with some of the nuclear stuff, and some of the things that were reverse engineered and stuff back in the 40s and 50s and stuff. But there's all kinds of stuff. I mean, even like, final thing I'll say for those who aren't excited about this tangent, but like, there was in the at CERN in Switzerland, in that Hadron Collider or whatever the thing's called, they actually did send a particle into the future by like, a micromillisecond or whatever it was. But like, they proved that at least going forward is possible. So like, and again, we already knew this again from Einstein that, it was possible, but like to, they actually did do time travel with a microscopic particle moving a microscopic amount, but like they proved like that actually was something they sent into the future. So like that to me was like kind of a big deal. Like, okay, like this, even at a microscopic level, just the fact that it works, that it's not just theory, like just to me is about, is just showing that it's something that I think we're just too caveman like still to have the tech to pull it off, but I absolutely do think that more advanced civilizations could absolutely be doing that very easily already. But last one says, it's a movie about an experiment on a Navy ship, and two people get transported 40 years into the future. Oh, interesting. Okay, yeah, I've never seen that one. I never even heard of that for some reason. But yeah, I am going to be going hopefully to see Disclosure Day, the Steven Spielberg alien movie that's coming out here in June. Because Steven Spielberg, obviously, and Back to the Future and stuff, should be good, hopefully. And alien stuff is always interesting to me too. So although I'm not into crazy sci-fi horror kind of stuff, but actual like more interesting stuff about that's not just trying to make you jump out of your seat is always interesting to me. So But thanks. That's a good recommendation, Lance. I'll have to look into that one when I have some time. And let me see. So, um, Lucas, thanks for stopping by. Or Luke's, thanks for stopping by here. And Chad says, I love our Fusion, but the most fun car I had was a Cavalier manual coupe. It wasn't fast, but it was zippy and fun. I had a few suspension and tire upgrades. That's awesome. Yeah, that's all it takes to make something like that really fun. So many people overlook tires, and that's a huge, easy improvement. Cavalier coupe, yeah, I'm sure it was a fun little car back in the day. I'm glad you had fun with it, and thanks for sharing. And Sark says, the last time I remember walking into a dealership that had a lot of manual cars on the lot was in 2015 at my local mini dealer in Winston-Salem. For every 2 Countrymans, 1 was a manual. Wow, that's awesome. That's yeah, it's a forgotten era when you could actually get manual, choices for a lot of vehicles, and yeah, I miss it. I think it's I don't know if it's ever going to come back in vogue in a big way, but I'm glad that at least manuals have kind of stabilized and they've stuck to the the baseline that they've kind of fallen to, and haven't declined further. So that's certainly good. And I think in especially the exotic and high end spaces, it's kind of actually having a nice resurgence, which is great. And Chad says Jordan's sick. There's a rough cold going around here, so he's resting, but here in spirit. Well, I hope he feels better soon. And that's unfortunate to hear that he's sick. Yeah, it's I know there's probably going to be more of these other sicknesses that start popping up here in the summertime. I know a lot of people are also just battling pollen, like around here. It's crazy. I was outside in our neighbor's backyard today while the kids were playing, and just like looking up and seeing like all this pollen just drifting in the sunlight was just like, it's crazy. So anyone who's out there with allergies, yeah, I know I'm usually not having like seasonal allergies that much, but like it even got me pretty good for a while there this year. It's not a good time as far as all the sickness goes. Yeah. And let me see. Luke says, oh my God, get down, Matt. A girl in white. Her arms get longer and almost touching your ears. Your house must be haunted. Maybe one of these days you'll get me. Maybe you got to wait until there's a live stream where I'm maybe having some whiskey or something, and I'll maybe be a little bit more susceptible to that. But thanks for stopping by. And TW says, will you review the Tello truck when it releases? Which one is that? Because we're not talking. I'm excited for the Slate. I don't know what the Tello one is. That name rings a bell, but I can't picture it in my head. But for any of these things that come out, if they don't have good dealer networks, which that I'm assuming doesn't, it's going to come down to them reaching out to me, because obviously unless there's an owner that happens to have one that offers it to me, there's no opportunity for me to have my hands on something like that. So that's that. Even with Slate, same deal. I mean, unless someone buys one around here and offers it to me, if the company doesn't offer it to me, I'm probably just not gonna be able to do one for a while. But I'm hoping to get into one of those eventually. And B. Mitchell says the thing with motor oil is synthetics are still all made from synthesizing natural gas. Right. Yeah. I wish it was actually fully like fake and didn't come from any, petroleum products. But yeah, that is certainly the case. So, the natural gas is definitely in low supply, especially from Qatar there. And Patricia, thanks so much for stopping by. She says, best YouTuber ever. You're my fave always. I appreciate that, Patricia. Thank you so much for always stopping by here and for your support. And Chad says, I was driving down the interstate near a Hummer EV. I think they're pretty cool. He wasn't driving like an idiot, but it was crazy to see how fast it accelerated with no delay for something huge. Yeah. And he says, confirmation says, I see more Hummer EVs than Silverado EVs. Me too. I do see, the Hummers a little bit more often. And yeah, but it's crazy, like with the acceleration, even today. So in the press cars I have, both of them are gas, and doing rolling shots, there's sometimes where, Beth is, cruising in the Lyric, and then she even does a little bit of an acceleration, and it's like, oh, okay, I gotta like, downshift, and I gotta, like make all this commotion. Then I catch up to her, but it's so much of a delay. And I mean, sometimes it works out because like in the video, you want to see like a little bit of back and forth for the rolling shots. You don't want it to just be a perfectly still, side by side kind of thing there. but a lot of that's just unintentional of me trying to like match her speed, and like for every little increment that she moves, it's like I gotta either go "Arr!" and then I gotta slow down, and it's like it just it's again it's so old school really these days, still very modern, but like yeah, EVs are so much quicker with that for sure. Um, and Chad says, do you think they'll bring back a revised Lightning? If you're talking about the sport truck version, I don't think so because Lobo's kind of feeling that. If you're talking about the electric F-150, they said it's going to be plug-in hybrid for the next generation. So I think Lightning will stick around in name, but it'll just be a plug-in hybrid. And it's going to be a range extender plug-in hybrid, like what Ram is someday potentially still going to do. But, that same kind of thing where you have, the engine powering the battery pack and the engine not actually being connected to the wheels. I think that's what they're going to be doing for the revised Lightning. And I think they did see that, like the Ram Charger, or now called, I think it's still called Ram Charger, that was the right way to do that, especially in this transitory period. And the fact that Ram still didn't go, full throttle into that one. The electric one, I understand them, putting it on the back burner, although they probably wish they had them to sell right now. But like, I think the Ram Charger was really a good idea, and they were almost ahead of the curve on that one. And then, of course, like they often do, they shoot themselves in the foot, and they're going to give it to Ford instead to be the first out of the gate with that, most likely. So, it is what it is. But yeah, I think that will certainly be coming back like that. Tumbling Mustard says, what do you think is the most Yinzer thing about you? I think, I don't know. I mean, I say iron, which is very much like a very Pittsburgh way of saying iron, which I guess is the correct pronunciation. Maybe I'm still doing it wrong. I don't know. I think my accent is certainly a little bit of it. And it's kind of hard because you can't really hear your own accent as much. Maybe for some of you, it really stands out. I'd be curious if I sound vastly different than other, especially East Coasters. Because I know, like, Midwestern accent that really still sticks out to me, and like the, Michigan kind of accent. And there's some of that, but yeah, I think that's probably the most Yinzer thing is that. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything else. I mean, there's things, as far as like my reviews, I think I always have like more hilly and, very lush surroundings. Pennsylvania is just loaded with trees. So there's that. That's maybe a little bit different than a lot of the other reviews you might watch that, have different scenery. But yeah, that's probably it. I mean, I love Yinzer food. So I love pierogies, Permane sandwiches, which is it's a deli sandwich that has fries and coleslaw on the sandwich. And that's, one of my favorite things. I don't eat it that often, but definitely love those. Pierogies are super good. So yeah, that's probably it. I'm also Polish. I'm a very big mix of a bunch of ethnicities, but Polish is one of the bigger percentages. So there's a lot of that too, as far as like my love of pierogies and stuff, because that's just a kind of Polish thing. And also Beth's texting me, she said, shout out to Eaton Park. Yeah, that's another thing. That's one of our local chains here that I was just at today, and they have delicious food. So some of the Pittsburgh restaurants but that's not really influencing the channel here, but lots of good things about Pittsburgh that I love, and that's why it's always felt like home, and I'm very much attached to it. And even though there's a lot of, obviously I've been very fortunate, there's lots of amazing places to live, but for me, this is always the most home-like place. But also Beth did text me too earlier when we were talking about car seats. I'm not sure if the person who's asking about car seats earlier is still in here. If you are, she said that our daughter got car sick sitting backwards and was really upset when we drive for too long. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Thanks for reminding me, Beth. So that was another one of the motivations why we moved her around sooner than a lot of others maybe potentially do. But yeah, she would definitely whine a lot more, and she just didn't like being in cars. But the second we turned her around, like that went out the window, and she just magically, like immediately, like just loved driving. And now she's got, like any kid, she gets fed up after a while, but no, she really loves it. So yeah, anyway, a little bit of extra info there if if that person's still in here. But let me see. So where are we here? Chad says, I'd love to be able to afford an EV right now. I've been door dashing to make ends meet, but if I wasn't paying for gas, I could make plenty more than I do at my regular job, and it's way easier. Yeah. Well, sorry, you've had to be, door dashing to make ends meet. I can totally relate with, picking up odd jobs and things like that. I've been doing these car buzz articles too. That was something out of necessity. It's not something that, it's fun to do, but I'm doing that just because I needed the extra money. So I can kind of relate to that. But yeah, it's also with the EV thing, it comes down to the math, for some people, it doesn't math out. And also if you have a car that, it's paid off, or it's, something you're affording, even if you're paying for gas, it's going to have to get a lot more expensive, I'm sure, before it ends up being cheaper to get an EV. But just do know, there are plenty of, great options, even right at $20,000 on the used market, which I know is still a good chunk of change for many people. But, they're not all 50 grand like some people, like to paint that narrative and that picture of EVs, and that's not the case for sure. And Imperial Films, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it. Mr. 705 says, my comment must have been cut off, but I didn't bundle. You didn't bundle $4.99 into the price. I'm getting it done somewhere else for much less. Okay, cool. Yeah, well, that's good, because that is an expensive price tag. But again, if it, is a minor thing on the financing, I can understand why people, kind of go for some of those accessories. But yeah, I'm glad you'll be getting a better deal elsewhere. The Lancewell says, I recently got a quote to tint the front windows on my Silverado, and it was $210 for UV tint, and Matt had it on his Bullet. Yeah, the Expel, Expel tint's great because it keeps out a lot of the heat, which is really nice if you're in a sunny area. And it's really, it also protects the interior, so you don't get as much sun damage over the long term and stuff. So thanks for the reference there on the pricing, though, Lancelot. It's good to know. That's kind of what it costs these days. And confirmation says, do you pay the fuel costs for cars that manufacturers send you while you have them? And if so, can you write those costs off on your taxes? No and yes. So no, the cars come fully gassed up. The only reason I need to put gas in them is if I burn through a tank and I need to keep driving. But as long as I leave enough gas in there for them to easily make it to the gas station without biting their nails when they come to pick it up at the end of the week, that's all. So I do get free gas in the cars, which is also very nice. But yes, if I ever do, like if I do a road trip in one of the press cars and I'm filling it up and stuff, that is absolutely right off eligible, as long as, again, I'm doing a video on that car, and as long as the extra gas expenditure is part of that. If I'm doing a road trip, obviously I need to keep filling up, so that is a required cost for my business. So yes, that is when it does become a write-off there. So it's there's a lot of those little things with business traveling where a lot of the stuff kind of becomes eligible for write-offs. But the thing with write-offs, as you know, is it doesn't make it free. It just makes, just discounts that from your earned income, so it's not you're still paying for it, which is, I wish it was, some people think write-offs is like, oh, this means it's free. And it's like, no, it's, you're still paying your taxes. It's just you're lowering that percentage by a, tiny amount or whatever. It can be effective, if you do it well, for sure. And you can dodge some good costs, potentially, if you structure it right. But yeah, let me see. Viewer says S3 Yate from Mark 8. Sorry, I don't understand that, but I hope you enjoy your Mark 8 there, if that's what you're referring to. And Patricia, thanks again for the comment. So Lance says he DM'd me a trailer to the original movie. Okay, thank you. And also, Chad, sorry I missed your super chat there for some reason. But he says GPS GPS satellite adjusts for time travel due to speed, or would they? Or so if you're talking, I'm trying to understand your question. Sorry. Adjust for time travel due to speed. I know the GPS does, like change, intelligently at the time in all these cars now for, if you're in different places and things like that. But yeah, I don't know about I don't think GPS is smart enough to do any adjustments for actual time travel. And Chad says that manuals used to be cheaper and now they're an upgrade. Yeah, in many cases, that's true. And it also says it's kind of gross when you think about what pollen actually is to plants. Very true. Yep. And Sark says pollen season is definitely annoying. It's on our cars, and then you have allergies like coughing, and it's definitely not fun. But at least sunny and warm weather makes you feel a little more energetic and open. Very true. Yeah, but it is certainly a pain, especially with the press cars, because I always have to like hose them off so they're not just like caked in pollen for the videos. Versus some of the other cars, or other seasons, if a bird doesn't crap on it and I have good luck that week, then I'm actually able to not have to, hose off the car before a review sometimes, which is nice. And Ryan says, if you did another channel similar to penguins, I think you would be very successful. I don't know that channel. I'll have to look into that. I tried to do, another channel here with the relics of the Rust Belt. I'm still going to hopefully do a little bit with that in the future. And I just need to find the time to go to the junkyards again because things have just gotten so busy. But I'll have to check out that channel. I appreciate the recommendation. And B. Mitchell says, I think I remember the thing I remember about the Philadelphia experiment is that when the two sailors are sent into the future, one jumps into a mid-1970s Ford Torino and asks, "Where's the clutch pedal?" Interesting. Huh? Yeah, that's kind of a fun. So they go. Sorry, I'm trying to like wrap my head around this movie here. So they go from the like 40s to the 70s. Is that what I'm I'm trying to find the other comment Lancewell said about the movie, but they get transported 40 years into the future. So they go into the 70s from like the 30s then or something. That's cool though. I'll have to definitely check it out. Vishal says, "What's up, Matt? Got back this morning from a trip to Chicago visiting family for a few days. I hope it was a good one." He says, "Being away from the Rust Belt for so long, it's interesting to see rusty cars driving around." I bet. Well, I hope you had a great trip, and I hope it was a nice drive. If you drove or if you flew, hopefully it was nice and smooth too. But thanks for stopping by. And Chad says, every time you do a review down that road with the house almost on the road, I wonder if anyone has ever hit it. I'd clutch my cheeks every time I heard a car if it was my house. Yeah, on the windy road there. Yeah, I mean, they've got that cement wall there, but yeah, I mean, that's certainly not going to stop some of the heavier vehicles. I knock on wood for them. I've never heard of any issues there. But yeah, not a great spot for a house, and it's one of those houses I commend people for sticking with it, but yeah, I don't know if I would do that to myself. I mean, they don't even like you look a lot of times in other places, you have a guardrail around a house that's that close to the road, but it seems like that's something there. They're just winging it there. And I hope everything always stays good with that. I mean, I'm sure at some point, because that house seems pretty old and that road is very old. So surely at some point in the past 100 years, something must have happened, but I don't know. You would think it was only a matter of time, though. And Sark says, it's so strange with the timing of everything. The EV market was starting to slow down a lot because of the Trump ending the EV tax credits. Then the U.S.-Iran war started, and now EVs are heating up. Absolutely, yeah. And, and so it'll be interesting. I mean, I always thought, if EVs did slow down, that it would be temporary anyway, because again, a lot of these, I think the loyalty rate for EVs, once you're in one, it's like 93 to 96% of people only want an EV from that point on. So I knew, all these people leasing at the, in third quarter of 2025, we're going to need a new EV in 2 to 3 years after that. And I knew that, it was going to pick up and get back to that 2025 level in 2027 and 2028. But now it's like I fully expected this year to be a complete write-off for EVs and a bloodbath, and instead it might actually even outperform 2025 depending on how things play out here. And I think with every one of these price shocks with gas, both here and especially in other parts of the world where they're more open and their geography is more friendly to EVs, especially the short range ones. I think each one of these energy shocks, it's just like, okay, like I'm over this. I'm over, never knowing, based on what's going on in the Middle East, whether I'm going to be, able to fuel up my car or not. And I think that's why, again, to me, it's just like solar combined with EV, like you don't have any worries. Like obviously that's expensive and not for everyone, but with leasing and all that kind of stuff, it's not some crazy pie in the sky idea. And even, some of these places they've in other countries, a lot of these people are now just starting to like again put these little solar things on their patios that they've bought off Amazon or whatever, and like they actually reduce their electric bill even just with that kind of stuff. And so, there's, I just, even all the doomsday preppers and stuff is like, that's the way. Like, if you're worried about, some giant doomsday scenario, like if you have an EV and you've got a solar panel, you have unlimited mobility, at least within the range of your vehicle. Obviously, there'd be other things you got to worry about if you're doing some cross country trip, but like, if you just need mobility, in your area, like that is going to always work. So that's one of the comforting things I think about getting off all this stuff and, going to the renewables is so we don't have to always, worry about what's going on in the Middle East or what's going on in other wars. If we're energy dependent, which was a bipartisan thinking thing, back in the day until it became politicized. I think that would be something everyone would want is why do we want to depend on other people for stuff? I mean, it's good if you can work together, but if we have the capability, we have the technology, why wouldn't we? But anyway, let me see here. So, Vishal says, do you think we'll ever see anything like the Panther platform again? I remember as a kid, they were used for everything from cop cars, taxis, etc. I mean, I think that's kind of what Ford is envisioning in a way with their new, universal EV platform, where that's going to kind of, house or, underpin like 8 different vehicles potentially, from trucks to little sedans to SUVs, all that. But as far as, something that, is a little more heavy duty for cop cars, taxis, things like that. I don't know if we'll see anything like that ever again. I think the closest we can get to that right now is like the Dodge Durango platform, which is, really old, but still, kicking. And, yeah, but I really don't think we're going to see something like that, especially for sedans again. Just because again, the volume is just not there. I mean, you can kind of make the argument, I guess, like, Camry and stuff, again, not a platform, but, can be used for a lot of kind of stuff. But that was again, back when, a taxi was a very different kind of vehicle than it is these days. It was again these big things. So yeah, I don't think we will, unfortunately. And T is asking if we'll ever get another Scream montage of the reactions. I guess you mean, yeah. I mean, typically I was doing them every 100,000 subscribers I gained, and that obviously has slowed down considerably since the glory days of the channel when that was happening at least once a year, if not sooner. So yeah, I mean, maybe, once, I don't know when I could do it here, because I mean, we're already past 450. So I mean, yeah, I'll probably just do it at some point randomly and just do a compilation. It's been a long time. But yeah, I can probably do another one here at some point, because every once in a while someone does ask about those, and it could be fun. So, and I may actually, that might be something I start working on a little bit more, because there's, I think that's kind of underutilized. I think my reactions, if I put a little more effort into it, could be something I could, just get more eyeballs on social media clips and things like that, where it's, just that clip of my reaction. I think it'd be kind of funny. I tried that in the past. It didn't do super well, but I think, there's just better ways to package that, maybe to make it a little bit more viral worthy. So maybe once I start combing through some of those, I can start to do another compilation for YouTube too. And Chad says, I think Panther was the underpinning for the Lincoln Mark 8 and the Thunderbird, but I may be wrong. B. Mitchell, yeah, okay, he already had the answer there. They're their own platform, internal Ford code. I don't recall. Okay, yeah. So thanks for answering that, B. Mitchell. I didn't think it was Panther either, but I wasn't totally sure, so I appreciate the clarification. And Lancelot says, I can't remember the exact time frame. The most that I remember was the Navy was conducting an experiment on a ship to make it invisible to radar. Interesting. That's kind of funny. And, as we've now been disclosed, with the Navy files, some of the Navy ships actually did spot, the flying tic tac kind of thing was photographed, so that movie actually, maybe isn't too far from from a potential reality there. But anyway, and that's the other really cool thing about all that stuff is like now we're starting to actually get, like things that the military has like their footage of and stuff that they've been slowly sharing, and I hope we get more of that here in the future because I think it's we desperately need stuff to unify us as a species, and I think that could very much be unifying if it's like, hey, like we aren't alone and there are other things out there potentially, I don't know, but I think that could maybe help us to all bond and and try and work for the greater good again and not be so self-centered, a little bit as a species. But maybe that's wishful thinking, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, Michelle says flew to Chicago. Okay, well, I'm glad it was smooth sailing there both ways. Cousins from Arkansas drove up in their 2024 MDX. Also, was nice to check out. One as I haven't been in the current MDXs yet. The ELS system sounds so good. Yeah, it is. It's so underappreciated. I mean, I always praise it in my videos, and I always loved that system, but they don't give it enough credit. Honestly, I think Acura could have done more to market that as well because it is really, really good system. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think even some of the high-end German brands, it's a little bit better than some of those even sometimes, especially for certain types of music. But yeah, ELS is great. Confirmation says Lincoln Mark 7 and the Thunderbird were on the Fox body. Then in the 90s, the Mark 8 and Thunderbird were on the FN10 and MN12 platforms respectively. Awesome. Kudos to you for winning the trivia there. That's awesome. And T says, reaction or no reaction vid. Love your stuff, Matt, and I appreciate all your hard work. I appreciate that. Thanks so much for your support. And Chad says, we were groomed. Tic Tacs used to be popular. They fell off a bit. Now the aliens are flying them. Right. Yeah. Tic Tacs are great still. Yeah. Beth loves the orange ones. She'll go through one of those little cases of the orange ones. I mean, she doesn't buy them on a regular basis, but whenever she does, it's like they're gone in like a day. She loves those things. And confirmation says, speaking of MN12, I spotted a 90s era Cougar XR7 supercharged with a manual transmission. Very rare, and was basically a Thunderbird Super Coupe wearing your grandpa's Sunday best. Yeah, those are awesome. So I spotted, if you saw I think you watched the Junkyard video where I spotted the Cougar that was the Turbo Coupe one, which was cool. But yeah, never came across the supercharged one though. That's cool. That's with a manual too. Very rare. That's awesome. And Sark says, it's kind of crazy how timelines in the world are. Everyone said life was different before 9/11. Now we think about how life was different before COVID in 2020. At least we still have fun cars. Absolutely true. And yeah, I mean, things absolutely do change with some of these major, events. And yeah, we'll see how the 2020s, kind of change things. I mean, we've already seen a lot of change, but kind of curious again where everything heads. I think there's still a lot of history to be written here for the rest of the 2020s. So it's been crazy, but I know a lot of you, especially if you're like the same generation as me, it's like, the millennials had like all these crazy things. It's like, all these once in a generation things, like the baby boomers, they had, I mean, there was certainly a thing. There's plenty of stuff that was still crazy upheaval and, civil rights stuff. And you had, Vietnam and all these kind of things. I mean, the 60s were kind of, very much crazy and all that. So, it's not like, oh, it's just millennials, but like, between, 9/11 and COVID, all these like once in a lifetime things, 9/11 is like a Pearl Harbor thing. And you have COVID, being like, same thing as like the crazy flus of, the 1920s or whatever. Like, there's it's like always it's like, oh, it's super, but for us it's like one thing after another, like crazy recession and inflation, and it's like, oh yeah, they went through that in the 80s, and um that's like again once in a lifetime thing, but it's like that's all that generation mostly were dealing with. If you came up in the 80s, it was like that was really bad, but then everything else was smooth, at least until you got to 9/11 and stuff. But like I feel like with millennials, it was like we were little kids and we got hit with all these various things back to back to back. And yeah, so hopefully things improve, but yeah, it's it's hard to say. And also, I'm not paying 42 grand for a prelude. Thanks so much for stopping by and for gifting 5 memberships here too. I really appreciate that. Hope you're doing well. And let me see here if we got any familiar faces. Looks like mostly new people that are able to get those. So hopefully they enjoy those memberships. Thank you so much for that. And let me see. And Sark says the algorithms have even changed. What used to feel like the glory days before 2020. I hardly even go on TikTok because of the algorithms making everything a headache and depressing. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I could go on a tangent, for another hour here, but yeah, there's a lot of the algorithm just not being enjoyable anymore for a lot of stuff. And I know a lot of people, stepping away from social media and really feeling a lot better as a result, especially with the short form stuff. Not, I mean, I clearly have a dog in the race here, so, take it with a grain of salt from my mouth. But like, this short form stuff, it doesn't seem like it's a good recipe, for humanity and for sustainability. Like, at least with like these YouTube videos, like, yes, they're still engineered to be, super attention grabbing and, hopefully keeping people around till the end and all that kind of stuff. But like, at least it's still a similar enough format to a television show that it's, I don't think as much of a detriment to, human mental development and stuff. But, the short form stuff, it's just, yeah, the feeds, the doom scrolling. And honestly, I will actually say in my own experience, have been doing a better job of making a more conscious effort to do less of the social media stuff, as far as my own personal accounts and just reading through stuff. Like I've found actually a nice boost for my mood by watching more YouTube. And I find myself like, just like when I'm on my phone, either on the toilet or I'm on, doing something else and I have a few minutes to spare, like instead of, going to some, social media platform where I'm going to end up finding stuff that triggers me or whatever. Just like going to YouTube and like going through my watch later playlist or going through my subscriptions and, I don't have a lot of time, but, watching a 5-minute video here or there or something, it like, I don't know, to me, it really is a significant improvement. So again, I'm not trying to to plug YouTube watching or anything, because it has certainly plenty of its own flaws, and it's thing that you have to do in moderation. But yeah, I found like stay off of Facebook, stay off all that stuff, and stay on YouTube, and you might be a little bit happier, unless that algorithm gets depressing, which thankfully mine hasn't, because I again mostly shun the algorithm on YouTube still and just go to my sub page and only watch stuff from channels I'm subscribed to for the most part. But if you stick to that, I think hopefully that gets you away from the algorithm and you have just the stuff you've subscribed to and the stuff you enjoy. So yeah. Anyway, Chad says 9/11 had a much crazier and long-lasting effect. The laws they passed with surveillance, etc., are crazy. Yeah, that was a huge shift. And yeah, I could go into that whole thing too, but I won't, because yeah, there was a lot there, and to me, there's still some questions that haven't been answered about all that stuff that day too, that I think are very interesting. But yeah, I think the country has certainly changed pretty dramatically since then too. Anyway, Vishal says, did you see the Toyota filed for a $2 billion plant expansion in the San Antonio plant? Could possibly bring Tacoma production back to the U.S. Yeah, I saw that, and that completely makes sense. Honestly, because I think the San Antonio plant is where they build Tundra, and with how hot Tacoma is and how not hot Tundra is, I'm honestly surprised that in the meantime they haven't just flipped them. you would think it's like, okay, bring Tacoma into the States. I mean, Tacoma's always been a better seller than Tundra, though. So I don't know why they never, made that change. But like, you would think like that would have been something they would have done a decade ago is bring Tacoma and kick out Tundra and send that, to the Mexican plant or whatever instead. And I don't know why they ever did it the other way around, but that's certainly overdue. And I think that makes a ton of sense to bring Tacoma, production stateside just because the sheer volume of it, and not wanting to be paying through the nose for tariffs, especially. And B. Mitchell said, speaking of junkyard vids, now that the glaciers have retreated across PA and Ohio, will you go back to the junkyard walks? Yeah, I'm hoping to have the time to do that. Just it's a matter of finding the time to get out there and do that. So hopefully soon. I do miss it. I'm still just going to keep it on a very tight leash, once I get back to it. As if they don't perform, I'm gonna pull the plug because I can't, especially because there's they do take a little bit more time to film. They're gonna go out and go to these junkyards, especially the ones in Ohio, take some time, and it takes longer to film typically than a car review. So there's some extra work there, and so we'll see how it goes. But if they don't do more than 10,000 views for every single one this year, I'm not going to do it anymore because then I can just stick to the other stuff that I can do right here at home. A rant can do that, then that's a better use of my time. So I'm not burning the candle at both ends quite as much, even though I'm certainly already well past that point. But yeah, I'm glad you're still interested in them, B. Mitchell. That's good to hear that some people are still interested in those for sure. Confirmation says, yeah, the Cougar XR7 Turbo. And have you spotted the Unicorn Mercury Capri RS Turbo, the Mustang SVO? No, I don't think I've ever spotted one of those. But that's cool. I'll have to keep an eye out for one of those. And Chad says, us elder millennials are tired. You said it. Absolutely. I am. That is that is probably the defining word for the 2020s for me in general. Partially because just being a dad, that's very exhausting, especially in the early years too. But no, that's tired. It just is. I think in a lot of us, again, like you're doing the door dashing. I'm working until midnight every night. Even if I'm here at my computer, it's just doing it just so much work. And I calculated it's like I'm doing over like 70 hours a week of work at this point. It's just I'm just tired. It's just it's tough, and I know a lot of people are in the same boat. So hopefully we can all get through it here and find ourselves in sunnier pastures sooner rather than later. We'll see. And let me see. And B. Mitchell's clarifying about the Capri RS was a gentrified Mustang GT. Interesting. Okay. So it wasn't an SVO. Crazy. And Chad says the internet came on a CD. Yes, indeed it did. I remember the dial-up sounds very, very well. And that little screen going across from the 1 to the 2 to the 3. And it's good memories. Simpler times. And Lisa says, when I grew up, the internet didn't exist. Yeah, well, that's also a time to be cherished, when you didn't have all that crap. It was just nice and simple. And Michelle says, I'm an older Gen Z, 2000, so the internet has been a part of my whole life. Yeah, which is, I'm sure, kind of crazy, too, to have always, grown up with that interconnected nature. Good in some ways, but I think, in other ways, it's just different. And not necessarily bad, just different, for sure. And B. Mitchell said, I have no social media. Then again, I remember when AOL would mail you the floppy disks. Yeah. Well, I think, I'm sure you're happier without the social media. Honestly, like if it wasn't for the channel and it wasn't for, staying in touch with you guys, like if I randomly, won the lottery tomorrow, I would go dark, I would just again, aside from doing the live streams here, but I would love to not be on social media. There's a lot of great things about it, but again, like we said earlier, the algorithms are just so designed for rage baiting at this point that it's not as fun as it used to be, So I'm glad YouTube has kind of resisted that a little bit here. And hopefully we can keep that going for a while. But let me see. And also T says internet CDs in a cereal box. Oh, I remember the CDs in a cereal box. I forgot about that. That's yeah, because they it was the AOL discs that they actually gave you in some of the cereal boxes too, right? Like instead of just getting it for free at Best Buy or whatever, you had to like you could just pull it out of the box there, right? I think it's if I'm remembering correctly. I forgot about them putting those in the cereal boxes. That's good stuff. And Sark says I'm an older Gen Z as well. 2001 COVID was unique because of the unique timing where my senior year of high school was cut short a few months in 2020. Then my first 1.5 years of college were affected. Oh, that sucks. Yeah, because I really feel for you in that very narrow time period where it's like you were robbed of like a normal high school graduation. You're robbed of like the really good socializing you get in the first year of college and branching out on your own, making your own friends in a new place, and the community that you get there. I'm sure you still had some of that, but it's just not as easy and had more baggage, I'm sure, associated with it. So I'm sorry that was your timeline there. And yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, thankfully with my daughter, like, she was born in 2021. So like, she's gonna probably just learn about in history books and probably will have very little recollection of at least the most severe parts of that. But hopefully there won't be any other crap for her to deal with, and it will truly be a once in a lifetime thing. Although the way we're cutting public health funding, I'm guessing it's not going to be once in a lifetime. But anyway, so Engage says, hey, Matt, long-time viewer here. If you were to choose, in your opinion, the best era of car manufacturing, which years would you choose? For me, it's 08 to 2015, pre-Hellcat era. Well, thanks so much for being a viewer for a long time. I really appreciate that. As far as if you're talking like the golden era of enthusiast vehicles in particular, I mean, I'd say probably the 2010s. I mean, there was certainly some cool stuff, in the 2000s, but I think the 2010s, especially from the horsepower war kind of standpoint, but even just other cool stuff like the LFA and the birthing of the F division of Lexus, the ISF, and just the dramatic leap in horsepower from like Mustang, for example, with the Coyote motor introduction in 2011. Just all those major leaps, every single one of them happened in the 2010s. Everything in the 2020s, that came for Hellcats and stuff was all evolutionary. So to me, 2010s, they're going to be the golden era, like the 60s were, for muscle. I think 2010s are the 60s, and it's funny because 2020s are shaping up to be the 70s with oil embargoes and with gas lines, which are probably coming this summer if things don't figure themselves out. And just all it's crazy how these things are repeating themselves. Again, not exactly, but very, very similar, kind of things like that. So yeah, I think that's in this period of transition in the car world, I think, just like in the 70s, you went from gigantic bloated things to everyone downsizing, everyone going to small little hatchbacks, fuel efficiency became important, all those kinds of things. It's very much, again, same kind of stuff here, except this time we have the advantage of much better technology. So instead of penalizing you to go into a 49 horsepower Pinto or whatever, instead you're going into, an EV that'll smoke every single car you've ever owned in the past, and is super efficient, and all that kind of stuff. So I think we've definitely learned some lessons, and we've obviously had a mass improvement in that stuff. So it's not the huge compromise it used to be, because clearly people are not cut out for compromise as much as they were in the 70s with everyone flocking to the gas, the little fuel sipping stuff. Nowadays it's like no one wants to compromise on anything. But that's a great question, though. Yeah, I think definitely 2010s is the peak there for that. But I think, again, we'll have a fun new peak here with, the birth of the EVs and the birth of performance EVs like Ioniq 5N and all that. I think it's going to be really exciting, too. Just like, there's a lot of cool stuff that, came out of maybe not so much the 70s, but in the 80s, lots of cool stuff and, new things that weren't traditional, like Buick, GNX, Cyclones and Typhoons from GMC, to all these different things that weren't traditional, but were also awesome and defied convention. I think, that's kind of, what we're going to be seeing here, for people that are excited about that stuff. I'm sure people were pissed off about the Buick, GNX not having a V8 back in the day, and people were mad about GMC, or why are they making performance trucks? What is that about? Like, put it in a car or whatever. Like, there's all this. I'm sure people, were griping about that stuff back then too. And it's just, things that are different but are still awesome. I think that's kind of how I kind of look at that, generation. But Vishal says the new Honda stuff is looking promising. That sedan looks weird, but RDX looks good. Acura needs that desperately. I also saw a final gen RLX Sport Hybrid last week. Nice. That's a rare find. I'm hoping that Honda stuff works out for them, because they need all the luck they can get these days. But I'm still not convinced myself that it's going to actually help, because we knew a Civic was coming. We knew the RDX was coming. So to me, none of that stuff moves the needle for me as far as confidence in Honda and their decision making. But I hope that that it does work out for them. We'll see. I think they're just going to very much Honda, in the late 2020s here and into the early 2030s. If they are going to stick to the dated old stuff, which it sounds like they will for the most part, aside from a couple of those, I think that Honda will just be like what Dodge was, where it was just old tech. Durango sells really well. I think Honda could still sell really well, but it's just going to be old stuff. For some people, that's great. That's preferred. That's amazing. Other people, they won't consider Durango. It's ancient. They were interested in all the new stuff and, the stuff that's actually advancing. And so, if that's what's right for Honda, that's great. But, from a reviewer standpoint, it's not going to be competitive, but that's okay. For some people, they don't want that, and I totally understand, both viewpoints there. And Confirmation says, I mentioned Mustang SVO as a reference because it was better known variant using that engine. Gotcha. Okay. The Capri. And Lantern Tales, thanks for stopping by. He says, Forza Horizon 6 just came out. I will start playing it tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Well, I hope you have a great time playing that. I did watch the IGN review for that, and it got a 10 out of 10 for that game. So it looks really great. I desperately wish I had time to play it. That and First Light, the 007 game coming out here in a few weeks. I really am so annoyed I don't have time. But I'm hoping I can improve things here on the channel. And I've been seeing some good progress on the channel here in the past few weeks. View counts are actually consistently higher. And I'm cautiously optimistic that I may actually be slightly turning a new page here as far as the channel goes. So I'm hoping that maybe things can improve. I can, maybe get back a little bit more free time and play Horizon 6 and First Light here at some point this year. If I can cobble together enough money for an Xbox and a PlayStation, or I guess maybe I'll just wait till Horizon comes on PlayStation and then just get that so I can do First Light as well. Because I think I'd rather go PS5 than Xbox if I'm going to buy a new platform, but we'll see. But I hope you have a blast with it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on Wednesday or next Sunday if you want to share your thoughts on Forza, but it seems like it's going to be a fun game. And T says, if Matt won the lottery, he'd start his next stream sitting in an F-Type. That would be fun. I mean, I would probably still be discreet about it because, you don't want to put a target on your back if you ever do have that kind of money. But yeah, I would definitely still keep the channel going, in one form or another, even if I didn't need the money anymore. But let me see. Chat says, we love these chats, Matt. Will there be a Wednesday? Yes, there should be a Wednesday. I don't think there's any conflict of schedule. So yes, I'm pretty sure I'll be doing one on Wednesday, unless there's some other holiday or something I'm forgetting about. But I don't think so. So I think I should be able to do one on Wednesday for sure. And Sark also says, thank you, Matt. At least on a positive note, we made the best out of it, but definitely got robbed of some of the best years to socialize in college. Went to WCU in Kului, and we had a great car club. That's awesome. And I'm sure that was one thing you were able to still enjoy being outdoors and driving, you're able to, have that community even in the COVID era. So that's good. I'm glad you made the best of it that you could. That's great. And glad it didn't get you down, too much there. And B. Mitchell says only Team Corvette was PO'd about the V6 Grand National back then. Gotcha. Okay. Well, I appreciate the historical perspective there. That's interesting. I mean, I guess predictable there, but I'm glad that other enthusiasts embraced it. That's good. And Michelle says, with how most cars are going these days, I don't mind stuff being old now, to be honest. I do like how the current Accord looks, especially in touring trim, is classy and elegant. Yeah, the Accord is one of the ones that has certainly aged very well. I think that the interior is still one of the nicest ones. And it's one of the smoothest riding ones still. It's very nice for sure. So I think Accord's okay. Again, everything is fine right now in 2026. It's just with how everything else advances. Is it going to be competitive in 2030? That's the real question. Maybe it will be. We'll see, how everyone else progresses. But that's the concern is, they'll be fine for the next year or two. But as time progresses, it may be less so. Lastly here, I think Michelle has the last comment here of the night. He says, I like knowing that it'll look something like its current form for a while. Yeah, I mean, that certainly will help depreciation. If people know, that this is the way it's going to look for a long time, then, it's like the Forerunner kind of phenomenon, where you have, people kind of hanging on to them longer, buying them used longer. And that whole thing. So that could certainly work in their advantage, especially because Honda did say, I checked this. I think maybe you actually brought up Vishal in one of the prior live streams. Honda is in fact doing more fleet sales now. They're not going to go as crazy. So they're not going as high into fleet sales as like Toyota and some of the Koreans and stuff. But they are doing fleet sales now more. And that is a change for them. So you may actually start to see some rental Hondas for the first time ever. But again, they're not going crazy, but they're just helping boost their volumes a little bit, which, I mean, I can't blame them, but that is a fine line to walk. If you start dumping too much into the rental fleet, then that will certainly hurt your resale as well. And brand perception a little bit. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out for them. But yeah, they are actually doing that, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, so yeah, I think we've kind of reached a nice stopping point here at 2 hours and 15 minutes. So thanks so much, everyone, for stopping by. Thank you for the great conversation here tonight. I hope you guys have a great, happy, healthy week. And for those of you still buying the gas there, hope it comes down for your sake here this week. Hopefully one of these days cooler heads will prevail and we can all get back to peace times. But anyway, thank you all so much for watching this one. Stay tuned for a great week of more content here on the channel. Thank you for all your support here on the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.